there is a money question that I think a lot of women ask themselves. Perhaps not always out loud. It happens when we're sitting in our car and we're gathering our thoughts before going back home. It happens when we're looking at our bank account, our mortgage statement, or our credit card balance. Or when we look at our dreams and think that they are expensive. Generally, the question is a version of, can I afford to change my life? Can I afford to slow down? Can I afford to stop caring so much? Can I pursue my dreams now? Can I afford to choose peace, even though everything is not perfectly aligned? Honestly, I think that there's perhaps a better question underneath it all. And that is, what is my current life costing me? Because we're taught to calculate what it will cost to make a change, to slow down, to pursue dreams, and go after what we may desire. But we're generally not taught, or we don't think about, calculating the cost of the life that you're currently living. What is the cost of keeping everything the exact same? I'm Katya, and this is Real Women Unscripted. Welcome to the first episode of the Unscripted Money Talk. This is a series that covers the emotional side of finance and money. Not just the budget, not just the numbers, not just the credit score, but the fear, the responsibility, the freedom, the security, the shame, the choices, and the inherited scripts that are often associated with money. And I want to say something from the very beginning to be very clear. Numbers are very important. Debt is real. Income is real. Caregiving is real. Children are real. Health expenses are real. And the cost of grocery is very real. So this is not an episode where I tell you, leave everything, go live your dream, don't worry about anything, leave reality behind. That's not the lane. This is about honesty. Because finance and money are so much more than just math. Money is safety, money is identity, money is power, money is choice, money is fear, and money is also obligation. For many women, is also the voice in your head saying, be responsible, which is wise. But sometimes, if we're honest with ourselves, it's the voice that says, don't you dare to want for anything. That is where things get complicated. Because a woman can be financially responsible and at the same time emotionally exhausted. She can be paying all of her bills, but at the same time feel like that is costing her way too much. She can make all the right choices and yet still hear her body say, this is not sustainable. And if she was taught to be the strong one, the dependable one, the one that gets everything taken care of, the one that keeps the peace, then she may have never given herself permission to ask the question that is underneath it all. She may have asked herself, can I afford for things to change? But she probably never asked herself, can I afford to keep abandoning myself? That is the part that I want us to sit with today, because we've been taught how to precisely calculate what it will cost to make a change. Our new payments, our income, list the risks. We exactly know who will be disappointed or inconvenienced by this change. And we can tell ourselves all the reason why this change is not the right one, or this is not the right time. We're not always taught how to calculate the cost of staying, the cost of resentment, the cost of exhaustion, the cost of shrinking, the cost of being physically present but emotionally gone, the cost of living a life that looks perfect on paper but emotionally, it doesn't feel like it's yours. And I want to be very gentle here. Because if you're in a season in your life when you truly cannot make a big change, I don't want this episode to feel like pressure. Sometimes staying for now is the wise choice. Sometimes there are children involved, debts, health needs, caregiving demands, legal realities, job markets, housing costs, and responsibilities that require time and planning. So the real question is not, why have you not made a change yet? The real question is, are you able to tell yourself the truth? There is a money script that a lot of women carry, and it sounds like this. A good woman does not gamble with stability. And at first, that sounds reasonable because stability, in all essence, really does matter, especially if you have lived without it, especially if you have been through seasons where money were tight, support was scarce, and you had to become strong because there was no other option available at the time. For a lot of women, stability is not just a preference, it's actual survival. So I'm not here to dismiss stability. I am grateful to stability. I am grateful for the part of me that helped me to provide, plan, keep going, and protect. But here is where the script becomes dangerous. It teaches women to treat their own life force as optional. It teaches us to protect the structure even when the person inside the structure is disappearing. It teaches us to call burnout maturity. It teaches us to call exhaustion loyalty. And it teaches us to call fear wisdom because fear can sound very rational. And honestly, fear can be practical. It can say things like, slow down, get the numbers right, make a plan. Don't make a permanent decision during a temporary storm. That fear can be very useful, but fear can also sound like stay small, stay tired, stay predictable, stay in a place where people know how to benefit from you. That is not wisdom. That is the script. I know for me, responsibility is not this abstract concept. As a single mom with a special need daughter, this is very real. Money has meant readiness. Money has meant that I had something aside in case she needed me, in case I could not work for a while, in case she had unexpected health needs, or I did, in case life did what life sometimes does, which is change without asking us for permission. So for a very long time, I found myself to save every single penny, being cautious and being very careful and thinking 10 steps ahead. And honestly, a lot of that was wisdom. Some of that truly protected us. But I also have to ask myself, was my version of safe so tight that there was basically no space left for any joy? There was a time in my life when a very short vacation, a couple of days here and there every 5 years, felt indulgent to me. Not because I didn't value rest, not because I didn't want to make more memories, not because I couldn't really use a break, but because I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was always waiting for the next emergency that may take my savings. And that is the tender place. I don't judge that part of me. That part of me was just there trying to protect me. But I am also learning to ask, is what protect me to be prepared for life preventing me from actually living it? That is where this money conversation become very personal for me. Not because I regret being responsible all these years. I really don't. But because I'm starting to ask a question where being responsible could also leave space for beauty, rest, peace, and moments that are not just about surviving what may happen next. When we measure cost in strictly currency, such as dollars, we miss the bigger picture, the full picture. There is absolutely a financial cost associated with change, but there's also an emotional cost associated in staying, the cost of being numb, and the cost of being irritated all the time without exactly knowing where does that come from or why. There is a cost around no longer knowing what your wants are because you spent your life making decisions around what is required. There is a cost of being praised for carrying everything while you're quietly wondering what will happen if you will stop carrying all of that by yourself. And I think a lot of women have been trained to discount those costs. They treat emotional depletion like it doesn't even exist or is not real until there is a crisis. Until your body says, nope. Until that relationship completely breaks. Until your job becomes unbearable and all the joy disappears. Until we wake up one day and realize that we have been managing a life that doesn't even feel like we are actually living. I said that with a lot of tenderness, not judgment, because a lot of us were not taught how to measure peace. We were taught to measure approval, alignment, productivity, but we were not taught to ask whether the life we're living it's a fit. We were taught to ask if we're managing everything well enough. But managing a life that is costing you yourself is not the same as living. So here is the reframe for this episode. Instead of only asking yourself, can I afford to make a change? Ask yourself, what is it costing me not to? And then go a level deeper and actually ask yourself, what kind of freedom am I trying to buy? Because money is not the real final goal here. Money is what makes what you want possible. Freedom to rest, freedom to choose, freedom to stay, and freedom to leave. Freedom to build something honest, freedom to stay for the right season, and freedom not to be owned by someone else's expectations. Freedom to stop performing stability when you're quietly falling apart. And once you know what type of freedom you're trying to create, money talks get clearer. Not necessarily easier, but clearer. Because when you can stop asking only the panic questions, do I have enough? What if I fail? What if people judge me? What if this is stupid? What if I regret it? And start asking grounded questions. What are my actual numbers? What are my non-negotiable expenses? What is my minimum viable life? What kind of runway would I need? What risks are real and what risks are inherited fears? What support will make this safer? What could I test before making a major move? What decision would honor both my responsibility and my humanity? That is the balance. Not fear-based stability, but also not reckless freedom. That is the balance. Not reckless freedom, not fear-based stability, but responsible freedom. That is the phrase I want to offer for this first money talk. Because sometimes we act as if freedom and responsibility are complete opposite. You can either be free or you can be responsible. But what if that is too small? What if the unscripted life is not reckless? What if it's also deeply responsible? Responsible for your bills, your commitment, the people you love, but also your body, your peace, your gifts, the woman you're becoming, and the life that keeps trying to get your attention. That does not mean that every longing becomes a decision. It does not mean that every dream is financially possible exactly the way you imagine it the very first time. It does not mean that every hard day requires a fresh start, but it does mean that your longing deserves to be listened to before dismissing it. It means your exhaustion deserves to be believed. It means your desire for a different life is not automatically irresponsible. And it means that the numbers are not the only place where wisdom lives. Here are a few money scripts to listen to for this week. Maybe one of them belongs to you. I should be grateful. Yes, gratitude is beautiful, but gratitude should not be used to silence truth. It is too late to start over. Well, maybe it is a little later than you expected, but that does not mean it is too late. I can now make less money. Maybe that is true. Or maybe the deeper truth is that you have never allowed yourself to redesign your life around enough instead of more. People will think I failed. Some people might, but people who confuse change with failure are not qualifying to define your freedom. I have to wait until everything is certain. Certainty is expensive, sometimes so expensive that it costs you years. I am not saying jump. I'm saying look. Look honestly, because avoidance is not a financial plan, and neither is suffering indefinitely. So here is an unscripted money practice that may help you. Not a rule, not financial advice, just one small reflection that may help you hear yourself clearly. So this week, ask yourself, what is my current life really costing me? Not just financially, but emotionally, physically, spiritually, and relationally. Then take out a notebook, a sticky note, a phone, whatever works for you. Write this at the top. What is my current life costing me? Make 2 columns, and on one side write cost of changing. That may include money, time, uncertainty, hard conversations, temporary discomfort, reduced income, lifestyle adjustments, or judgment from people who prefer the version of you that does not disrupt anything. Then on the other side, write the cost of staying. And be honest here, not dramatic, just honest. Is staying costing you your health, your joy, your confidence, your creativity, your relationship with your children, your ability to rest, your sense of self, your spiritual peace, or your belief that your life can still become something different? Then just look at both columns. Do not force an answer. Do not make a big decision from one emotional afternoon. Just take a look, because wisdom requires both. We do not make decisions in the absence of numbers, but we also should not be making decisions by ignoring the person that is living inside those numbers. That person matters. You matter. And if the number says one thing, but your whole body has been telling you something different for years, then you should pay attention. Not panic, not make rush decision, but listen and pay attention. Here is a gentle challenge for today. Do not let fear call itself wisdom without you question it, because fear can be very useful. Fear can say, crunch the numbers, make a plan, slow down a minute. But fear can also say things like, stay small, stay quiet, stay tired, and stay predictable. That is not wisdom. That is the script. And the work of becoming unscripted is learning how to tell the difference. This is especially important when we're talking about finances, because money can make emotional truth sound irresponsible. But your peace is not irresponsible. Your need to rest is not irresponsible. Your longing to build something more honest is not irresponsible. Your desire for a different life is not irresponsible. What is irresponsible is never running the real numbers because you're afraid of what those numbers may reveal to you. What is irresponsible is you continuing to be burnt out and calling it loyalty. What may be irresponsible is you waiting for permission from people that are comfortable with your exhaustion. That one may sting a little. It was painful to hear it for me too. So maybe the question is not just, can I afford to change my life? But the question is also, can I afford not to? And perhaps the next question should be, so how can make that change possible? Not perfect, but responsible and possible. What will make that change thoughtful, honest, and grounded? What will help me protect what matters to me without abandoning who I'm becoming? Because this is not choosing freedom over responsibility. It is refusing to believe that those are the only two options. Because the numbers are just one part of the story. And if you want to sit in that a little longer, I have created a tool that you can use privately. It is called the cost of changing versus the cost of staying. It is not about judging your decision or making sudden decisions. It is just a way to look at the money and the feelings more honestly. As always, when you're thinking about your money, your freedom, your responsibility, and the life that you crave, ask yourself, what would the unscripted version of you say? If this conversation spoke to some part of you, I hope you stay in touch through this channel. Real Women Unscripted is not about having it all figured out. It's about being open and honest on the journey to becoming unscripted. So if you haven't already, subscribe and stay a while. And if you want a quick smile before you go, stay for the Unscripted Moments coming up next. The little behind the scene pieces that remind us that becoming unscripted is not always polished. Money is money. Choice. Oh, bye. Thank you for being here and see you next episode.